Please welcome to the stage Solve Climate Advisors, Esther An, Chief Sustainability Officer, City Developments Limited, John Fernández, Professor of Architecture, MIT, Belén Páez, President, Fundación Pachamama, and moderator Tim McDonnell, Climate and Energy Editor, Semafor.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to be here with you this morning, and this is such a cool event celebrating all the really interesting work that solvers are doing, and I love seeing all the different examples of climate tech that are on display through these projects. And at the beginning of this session, we heard Eric say a little bit about MIT's kind of mission of doing research, but then also applying solutions and kind of working in the real world. And I think what we have with our panelists here is a few people who are really doing that in a very hands-on way, especially with the built environment, especially in the global south, using technology in a sort of in harmony with nature and drawing from nature to deal with climate and sustainability challenges. And we're going to just hear a little bit about some of the work that these folks are doing. And I'm going to stop talking now, but John, I wonder maybe if you could to start to tell us a little bit about your new lab and tell us a little bit about some of the work you were doing in Colombia and Peru that we were speaking about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very nice to be with you. Congratulations to the solvers. You're hearing it again. I have been the director of MIT's largest environment program called the Environmental Solutions Initiative, which has now been folded into MIT's very large-scale commitment to climate change, and so that's the climate project. But we're starting up a new group because we had great success in linking the academic work with actual work on the ground in country with measurable results. And so we're starting an organization called the MIT Environmental Research and Action Group, MIT ERA. Thank you, Taylor Swift. That group is intended to be the bridge between what we know in the academy on many different fields and what we need to do, because we know, all of us know, that what we do today, this year, is more important than what we do next year. It's going to be more important than what we do the year after. We need solutions today, and we need them right away. So I'll just describe just a little bit. The work that we do is in biodiverse cities, and I can tell you that one of the co-founders of MIT ERA, Marcela Angel, is in the audience. She's here. And the work that we've done that we're continuing is in nature, cities, and AI. And we're bringing those three together because at the intersection of those three is action on the ground driven by participatory justice. We've talked a lot, you've heard in the last couple of sessions about involving people, making sure that people are part of the decision making. Really, we're talking about participatory justice. And so the application of technology, when we use drones to map a region and then develop a machine learning model to predict landslides so people know where to build or not in a city in the remote Amazon, in Mocoa, Colombia, we involve the community from day one because it's the just thing to do. It's not just checking off a box. It's actually their decision making about then how to live in that place will be much more robust by way of the fact that they have been included. And that's really, we're talking about participatory justice when we do that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, John. And Esther, to bring you in, can you say a little bit about CDL's work with, you've been in this kind of green building and sustainable buildings space, the built environment for so long, and we were speaking backstage a bit about how you've seen the technology and the application of kind of green building solutions coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about especially some of the work you guys are doing around heat adaptation, living in hotter, dense cities, and what are some of the innovations that we need from a built environment point of view to sustain that?
Well, very glad to be here, 18 hours from Singapore. We live in the tropics, so heat is definitely the most important, priority. And in fact, globally, the hottest 10 years since record started in 1850, all occurred in the last decade. Every year you'll hear that, this is the hottest year, 2023, 24, and this year, the hottest July month, one of, on record. So Singapore itself is actually like warming up twice as fast as other parts of the world. 1.5 degree of north, of the equator. So heat definitely is the top priority. And in fact, solving heat problem, sustainability, a city in nature. John has been in Singapore for a while, and I think these are the top priority that we have to look at. In the real estate sector, where I started 30 years ago, it's actually everybody's business. Even you are not in the real estate, you live in one, you work in one, you use buildings at work and at play as well. So the global race to zero will not succeed without engaging the built environment, which account for 37% of greenhouse gas emission, consume up to 40% of energy, and also account for 1/3 of water usage, 1/3 of the world's waste, and also 50% of material extracted for building. And apart from new development, I think the founders will be interested is to improve performance of existing buildings. 70% of buildings exist today will still be around by 2050. So whether it is in Singapore or World Green Building Council, and in fact, our company has actually operation in 29 countries and regions. We are not just looking at the tropics, but of course, heat is a top priority.
Can you say a bit more about it? Is there a particular solution or set of technologies that you're looking at for cooling for buildings that you're particularly excited about, especially for that stock of existing buildings, which, as you were saying, is sort of like that's in some ways the hardest nut to crack.
Well, when you talk about solution, you look at the whole life cycle. How we design, how we build, what materials do we procure, and how we manage property. People spend 90% indoor. So how we engage our tenants, our building users, our home users are very important as well. So now, of course, apart from technology, we also look at nature-based solutions, at what John is talking about. And of course, the last couple of years, with the launch of the task force for TNFD, for nature-related financial disclosure, there are more scientific tools to measure using drone or other solutions to measure the impact between our building operation assets with nature. And with data, then we can identify solutions and we can work on, what we can apply. Technologies are a must. Even when we get hold of a plot of land, we need digital tools to identify the orientation of the building to maximize, light source, ventilation, and in the tropic, you want to have maximize, cross ventilation, and also use materials that have cooling, for example, cross-laminated timbers and all that. And we are very excited about all these new solutions. Yeah. And nature-based solutions is very important. Singapore is very hot, but it is still very sustainable and livable because of the high percentage of green cover, almost 40%. So everybody know that when it is hot, you look for shade, stand under the trees and all that. So we look at nature-based solutions, and we are testing something called microforest, which is you can plant a lot of millions of trees, but you are not planting at the right place. You are not cooling the urban spaces. It's not going to help us provide better comfort for building users. So microforest is something that I just launched in March, and we are collecting data for about a year, and we hope to scale it up. And for every development, hopefully, we can have a microforest rather than ornamental potted plants and all that doesn't really only look pretty but doesn't really cool the environment. Right. It helps to mimic the forest. Everybody enjoy walking in the forest or nature reserve that, have fresher air, cooler air, and also bring back the native, species and the biodiversity. Yeah,
it sounds nice for just quality of life. I mean, I would love to live in a building with something like that. It sounds great. We'll come visit. And speaking of kind of nature-based solutions, Belén, could you tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've done around kind of incorporating technology into the work that your group does with empowering indigenous communities in the Amazon for the purpose of conservation and kind of climate adaptation and protection, and how are you sort of bringing more technology into that work?
Sure. Congratulations to the solvers and also to ERA and all the efforts that we all are together doing for our planet. And in the Amazon, and it reminds me what you were saying about buildings. At larger scale, we need to definitely protect not just the lungs of the earth, which we know about the Amazon, but it's the heart of the earth. So if we are reducing the way that forests are losing biodiversity and losing forest, we are getting very close to the tipping point as well in the Amazon. So for over 30 years, we have been looking at possibilities and solutions to reduce deforestation, to reduce the loss of biodiversity. But especially the last 5 years, I'll say that there are different things happening at the lower Pastaza, in the region we work with the Achuar people. We have been able to create a collaboration between different organizations, especially led by indigenous peoples working with what we call the Jaguar Biocultural Unit. It's a kind of a token. It's called the Jaguar token to protect biodiversity, and also is very well known now because our pilot project has been very successful in a way that monitoring, report, and verification of measurements of carbon and biodiversity and biomass are happening, and they are made by indigenous people's youth from the communities. So the biocultural credit is known very well also in the crypto community, and they are supporting us to put out the tech part to protect forests with indigenous partners. One example. On the other hand, we can definitely share that this week we are working with an AI company that is going to support the Zapara language, that is one of the languages that are now almost disappearing from the Amazon. This week, through AI, we are going to see if this language can be recuperated through the analysis of grammar and vocabulary. And two friends from the Zapara community are here in New York, and they are going to be in a studio recording a dialogue, 150 words between them. This language has not been used for several years now, and we will see that AI can support indigenous languages around the world to be able to recuperate it. And to me, it's very important for you to know that if indigenous peoples are going to be able to defend their territories, they need to keep their traditions, their wisdom, their language, and this would be part of the protecting forest alive, standing forest.
I love that example of a sort of application of AI or technology for cultural preservation, and which I feel like is so important for facilitating what can we learn about conservation from kind of indigenous knowledge or traditions, and maybe you need to have better documentation of the language itself to understand some of those insights, and if AI can be helpful for that, that's super interesting. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. John, as the work with your new lab goes forward, I mean, where do you kind of see the most important opportunities for innovation, or are there sort of blind spots in this type of work that you would like to see filled in? I don't know if it's more development with drones or with AI, or where are the sort of tech horizons that you'd like to push?
So I know we're time constrained, so I'll be really quick. So there are two threads. One is the role of cities in reducing their impact on biodiversity and maybe even enhancing their role in local biodiversity, urban biodiversity, but also biodiversity globally. And there's a lot of work happening. It's right at the beginning, a lot of research to be done, but actually a lot of action to be taken as well. So that's really exciting. The second thing is on AI, and I actually want to take a step back here for 1 second. Super interesting conversation before on AI. But generally speaking, when we're talking about AI, we're talking at the very highest level, sort of this generic either AGI or superintelligence or whatever. We're rarely talking about machine learning, right? We're really talking about these models that are built bespoke to solve a really specific problem. And the machine learning that we use to build a model to be able to provide a risk map for planners in the city in Colombia was a very, very custom, very detailed machine learning model. And that's, for me, it's kind of analogous to what's happening in climate talks, is that at the international level and really the national level, we are stumbling. It's not working out. At the local level, city level, and community level, actually there's an enormous amount going on. And that's the way I see AI. At the smaller level, at the local level, very targeted, really intelligent use of of the protocols is where I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Esther, in the time we have left, we were speaking backstage a bit about the economics of green building and how you've seen the sort of business proposition around doing sustainable development as a property developer. Mm-hmm. Can you say a bit about that? I mean, are these good investments to be
Quite quickly, in my past, humble experience in 3 decades, the first 10 years, everybody say it's like, we must be very free, it's cost, anything to do with green is cost, it's expensive. Then after Paris Agreement, it's like, everybody feel that climate change is real, but the last 10 years is really business case. Green building, certified building can achieve higher occupancy, higher rental, and overall capital value. So this is very important. And in closing, just want to highlight that human-centric is very important. And whether it is about the climate, whether the planet, whether technology and finance is very important. Everything must be human-centric. Mm-hmm. And when you mobilize capital, you can deploy technology and also nature-based solution. And everything must be serving the human interests and values.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And Belén, we'll let you have the last word here, but we have a room full of innovators and researchers and entrepreneurs. Is there, what would be a request that you might make for some of the innovators here? What's most needed tech-wise for the communities you work with?
We need to acknowledge indigenous wisdom as a technology as well. There are a lot of this is the call. There are so much wisdom and the connections through the ability to learn and experience and listen to nature is one of the solves that will let us, the planet, to help Singapore to reduce global warming. So we need to protect the forest and the standing forest and indigenous people's traditions.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great way to end. So thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you. That was a really interesting conversation.